thank you for, I want to thank Zette and Rudy for inviting me down. This is my first time to Celebration Circle, and this is a nice place. I like it very much. Thank you. And evidently, I'm not here to tell you anything you don't already know, that we are all one. But I'll talk about how that makes sense to think about philosophically. I'm a student of philosophy. I like to have a conceptual framework for understanding how the world is and our place in it and so forth. So let me ask you this. How many people have heard somebody say or have said themselves, the universe wants me to do something or is offering me an opportunity? Like today, the traffic was pretty easy coming down from Austin, so you might say, oh, the universe is making it easy for me to get down here to Celebration Circle. Or you're having a problem in your life, dispute with somebody or something, and you're smart enough to realize it's actually an opportunity, and you say, well, the universe is giving me a growth opportunity here, right? So you heard people say that. What is it that makes us think of the universe as an agent, as a being with will and intention? Well, part of it is that it's how our brains are wired. Evolutionarily, we are evolved to have two cognitive modules, so to speak, two ways of thinking about the world. And research has found that in very young infants, we have these two ways of perceiving and thinking about the world. One is in terms of objects, and the other is in terms of agents. So objects are things like this microphone and the stand and the chairs and so forth. And objects, we're sort of born knowing things about objects, that an object can't pass through another object, that objects are, if they have pieces, all the pieces move together, they don't kind of fly off, that they move along continuous trajectories, that objects don't move unless something gives them a shove. And we're wired to understand agents being beings with will and intention and belief and desire. Agents are recognized by their ability to move or change direction on their own without something else giving them a nudge. Especially agents are recognized when they seem to persistently move toward something or away from something. There's a great video, you can probably find it on YouTube, experiment that's a movie of some there's a triangle and there's some balls and maybe a square, and that's all there is. But as you watch these things, one of the balls moves up the hill and another thing gets in its way, and then it bumps up against it and moves around, and you just automatically interpret these shapes as agents. Oh, the ball is trying to get up the hill. Oh, this little box is getting in its way, so the ball tries to get around it, and then there's other things where another ball comes and helps and so forth. So we're wired to think and to recognize agents, animals and humans. And the reason we say things like the universe is helping me or hindering me or giving me an opportunity is we think of the world as a whole as an agent, a being like us, but much bigger, that has beliefs and desires and will and intention, wants things to happen, makes things happen. So how can this be? What is this world of agency? So I'm going to skip over a lot of things pretty briefly here, but there are two ways of thinking metaphysically or philosophically about the world as a whole. One way is what we might call materialism, that what's really real is objects, stuff, little molecules bumping against each other, and we human beings are in some mysterious way, we have consciousness because of the complexity of the molecules bumping around. Now, exactly how you get consciousness and will and intention out of dead things bumping around, it's not real clear. All right, that's materialism. There's another metaphysical philosophical view called panpsychism. Pan is a Greek word meaning all or everything. Psyche is a Greek word meaning mind, so it's our word psychology, or the psychic that through mental powers knows something. So panpsychism is the idea that everything in some way has an element of being aware of its surroundings and being able to act on those surroundings. Now that's pretty obvious in terms of us, right? We have psyches, we have minds, we have thoughts and feelings, and we can be conscious of our world and so forth. And it's pretty obvious in terms of animals. If you've lived with dogs or cats, you know they have a mind of their own. And birds and so forth, and even little earthworms go toward something and avoid something, and even you could even say, okay, well, little tiny animals, little microbes, they're living, they have mind. But it's not obvious that objects like the stand or the microphones or the chairs or the ceiling, they don't move around, they're objects. How does that, what do you mean they have mind? Well, the doctrine of panpsychism does not assert that chairs and tables and floors have mind. What it does assert is that the elements of which those things are made have an element, an aspect of what we might call subjectivity or interiority, the ability to be in some way aware of their surroundings. Now, when I say the elements of which they're made, I'm talking about little micro quantum scale thingamabobs, whatever they are. They're really more like events than solid things moving around. And the events happen, and then they happen again, and they happen again, and the sequences of events form what we think of as solid particles. But of course, at the quantum level, sometimes you don't have solid particles, sometimes you have waves of probability, so it all gets kind of woo-woo down there. But the panpsychic view is that all those little micro, tiny events have an element of awareness of their surroundings. And there's a whole philosophy called process philosophy that's all about that. So just let me invite you to think about the floor itself doesn't move around, but what it's made of are bunches of tiny little things that are aware of their neighbors, so to speak, and they just keep doing, the floor just keeps doing the same thing over and over again, but it's not inert, it keeps doing things. And of course, living beings are composed of these tiny little things that in some way the mentality of all the tiny things grows and merges into a greater mentality that eventually becomes the full-blown consciousness and will and agency that we know and enjoy as human beings. So, in that sense, you could say the world is alive, or at least the elements of the world are alive. Okay? But how do we get from elements of worlds that are alive and individual people that are alive to saying, well, we're all one? How does that work? I'd like to read a verse or two from the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient Hindu scripture. In this scripture, Krishna, who is an incarnation of the deity, is speaking to Arjuna, who's a human being. Krishna says to Arjuna, "This body, Arjuna, is the field. He who knows this is called the knower of the field." So think of yourself as here you are in a body, you're looking out at what we might call the field of consciousness. So one who knows the field is the knower of the field. Then he says, "Know that I, Krishna, the God, I am the knower in all the fields of my creation." And that is the essential mystical teaching that what we call God or the divine, there's many names, the all, the one, the Buddha nature, the Tao, is a sort of vast mind that is composed of all the minds of all the beings, both microscopic and macroscopic like us, in the world. All of the mentality sort of, it's like the God is looking through your eyes and feeling with your hands, and looking through your eyes, and looking through your eyes, and feeling with your hands, and smelling with your nose. So there's like this monster big mind or consciousness or intelligence that is sensing everything that we individually sense, and everything else, and everything else. So that is the sense in which we're all one. We're like an eye through which the one being sees the world, each of us. Well, so we don't generally think of ourselves that way. We don't generally experience ourselves that way. We think of ourselves as separate. But in reality, we are one in that we are manifestations through the mentality of the world of the one mind, the one being. So what I'm saying is that from panpsychism, we get pantheism. Pan, everything, theos, God or the divine. Everything is God. Everything is divine. And we get to realize this and know consciously that we are part of that divine nature. So when we say the universe provides me with an opportunity, that's exactly true. The universe, all there is, has a mind that is aware of us individually, cares about us individually, has our welfare at heart, each of us, individually, me, you, all of us, right? And in that sense, yeah, we're all one. Because there is only one being. Ram Dass had a saying, there's only one of us. And that is the mystical teaching underlying this idea that we're all one. Or that's a philosophical way of explaining how it is that we're all one. So as that said, in addition to being a philosopher, I lead Sufi activities, universal Sufism. And the Sufis, by universal I mean we're not just Islamic, we honor the mystical traditions in Christianity and Judaism and Buddhism and Native American spirituality and all the different religions. And the Sufis think of God as the friend or the beloved, as a person, a being with consciousness, will, intention, desires, who's very close to us, so close that, in fact, that being is us, and we are that being. Well, that's good. That's a nice theoretical way of thinking about the world and thinking about our place in it. But theory alone is not enough. You can have a great theoretical understanding of something. It's like riding a bicycle. You could understand the dynamics of how the wheels go and have a gyroscopic effect such that it doesn't fall over, and you can understand all that stuff. But if you've never actually ridden a bicycle, you don't know it really. You know the theory about it, you don't actually know it, right? So there are practices you can do to gain an experiential knowledge rather than a theoretical knowledge of the unity of us all. And these practices can allow you to tap into the wisdom, the benevolent guidance of this great being of which we are all one manifestation.